at the screens on your devices. An image of the flag is going to be displayed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Staff, would you please do a roll call?
Good morning. This is Danielle from HART. Please say here when your name is called. Chair Williams.
Here.
Director Mechanic.
Here.
Director Kemp.
Here.
Director McLean indicated his absence. Director Overman.
Here.
Director Schisler.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. On HART General Counsel, Julia Mandel will read into the record the rules of the committee participation. Julia, I hand it over to you at this point.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you for your participation in this virtual meeting. The change of meeting location from in-person at the HART Administrative Office to virtual meetings is pursuant to Executive Order number 20-179, extending Executive Order 20-69 by the Governor of the State of Florida on July 29, 2020, and Section 120.54 Florida statutes. Due to social distancing, the boardroom and the e-board administrative offices is only accessible for personnel facilitating the meeting. Please keep your devices and phones muted when you are not speaking. Muting the sound and microphone on your device will avoid feedback. Please also discontinue personal conversations for the duration of the meeting. Please follow along with a copy of the meeting agenda and materials sent via email. All presentations will be shared online while presented. Roll call has been taken for attendance and will be taken for voting by HART staff. Quorum and voting results will be announced. There will be an opportunity for members of the public who have pre-registered with HART staff to provide comments. General Counsel will read into the record public comment participation rules. During the meeting, please wait until the chair asks for comments or questions from the committee or board members for each agenda item as the meeting progresses. When you want to provide a comment or ask a question, please signal that you want to speak by activating the hand button, which is in the white circle next to the name on your screen. The hand will turn blue when activated. Staff will read the hands raised in order for the chair to acknowledge, then the participant may unmute their device and speak. Please speak your name before comment. Presenters, please note that all presentations are controlled by HART staff. Ensure that you state your name, title, company, and organization for the record. Please say next slide when needed, and staff will progress through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to page 5 of the packet to review the Operations and Safety Committee roles and responsibilities provided for your information. Next on the agenda is the approval of our Operations and Safety Committee meeting minutes from May 18th, 2020. You can find the minutes on page 6. Is there a motion?
Jill Schisler, so moved.
Thank you. You have a second?
Second by Commissioner Overman.
Thank you. We have a first by Councilman Schisler, and second by Commissioner Overman. Danielle, will you take the vote by name, please?
Yes, good morning. This is Danielle from HART. Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Williams?
Yes.
Director Kemp? Director Kemp?
Yes, is this approval of the minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, there's an approval of the Joint Operations and Safety and Finance and Audit Committee virtual meeting that took place on June 15th, 2020. You can find the minutes on page 11 of this packet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Schiffler, motion to approve.
Thank you, Councilman Schiffler.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Overman.
Thank you, Commissioner Overman. Danielle, will you take the vote, please, by name?
Yes, good morning. This is Danielle again. Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Williams?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yeah.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Danielle, you went out just a little bit. Would you mind repeating the last sentence, please?
I apologize. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our public comment. Next agenda item is public comment. HART General Counsel Julia Mandel will read this into record the rules for public participation.
Yes, the board welcomes public comment about any issues and concerns and has made provisions to allow for virtual public comment. Public comments offered virtually be afforded equal consideration as if they were offered in person. Anyone wanting to provide public comment for any HART committee or board meeting should contact Danielle Arthur, Board Administrator, at arthurd@gohart.org or at 813-955-2426 with your name and phone number for pre-registration. Comments are due by 5 p.m. the day of the previous meeting. Staff will call on all speakers by name in the order in which registrations were received. All callers will be muted upon calling and unmuted in the submission order after being recognized by name. Please state your full name and organization address if desired. Up to 3 minutes are allowed for each speaker, and the speaker will be muted once time is up. Staff, please proceed.
Chair Williams, we don't have anybody on the line, but I have a written statement to read into the record. It was from Karen Kress, and it was emailed to me. And the statement is, the Tampa Downtown Partnership is requesting that HART renew our contract to provide a downtown circulation system utilizing the Downtowner service through the end of this year. Due to the schedule for the new contract HART will be awarding, the original deadline of October 1st will be missed. This does not have a financial impact as the Downtowner has created an austerity plan to make the current funding stretch another 3 months. Bottom line, we will be providing the same amount of service for the same amount of funding over a longer period of time. The cutbacks during safer at-home policies enabled this to happen. And again, it was from Karen Kress, Director of Transportation and Planning, Tampa Downtown Partnership.
Thank you, Danielle. This concludes the public input section of the meeting. Our General Counsel will read the closing statement into the record, please.
Thank you for sharing all your comments and participating in this virtual meeting. Please continue to listen and view the meeting at the HART YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/user/HART-transit. Please note that when public comment call is ended, a brief prompt will play, but no meeting participants will be disconnected, so disregard the prompt. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving to the presentation portion of our meeting at this time. We will get a monthly safety and security update from Mr. Colin Malloy, Director of Safety. You are recognized. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Colin Malloy, Director of Safety with HART. If I could pull up the presentation. Okay, thank you so much. As I said, this is the monthly safety and security update. We'll be discussing May of 2020, if you go to the next slide. So today I will be giving an analysis of the accidents on the safety side, as well as talking about the security events from both physical and verbal altercation, and then some of the continuing items that the department and HART is working on as it comes to safety and security, and then obviously any questions that the committee may have. Next slide. So in May, we are continuing to see a downward trend in accidents. As you can see from the numbers here, just looking from April to May, we saw this decrease. I would want to remind the committee that these are COVID-related numbers. You know, our service level during this time is roughly half of the service that we normally see on the street, and the number of accidents we have actually correlated with that to some degree in terms of we see roughly about 50% of our normal accidents occurring due to that level of service. A couple key takeaways, I would just say, if you were to be asked what is the largest type of event that HART sees, it would be a fixed object or, you know, like a mere collision. Those are the vast majority of the ones that we see. Those are low dollar impact to the agency, but they do affect revenue service at times. So those are the largest ones that we see. And then the bigger accidents really are third-party vehicles out on Hillsborough County streets that are either rear-ending or striking HART buses. I'm very proud of the bus operators we have. I talk about our continuing actions, but we have a series of professional drivers who I think their safety record shows time in and time out on the amount of trips they do and the very low amount of accidents we have. On the paratransit side, same thing. We've been trending in a pretty even keel, and the ones that we see there are the fixed object collisions. I'm talking about streetcar. In the month of May, we had no streetcar events, and we'll continue to keep this committee updated month to month. Next slide. Now, looking at security, you know, we wanted to make sure that we're keeping this committee updated when it comes to security. I'm happy to say that, you know, through this period, we have not had any physical altercations with our bus operators. We are tracking that monthly. We are reporting it to you. You know, this board showed a lot of leadership in terms of the mitigations we put in place, from barriers, from security guards to technology towards training. So, you know, we're seeing some of the fruits of that right now. Verbal altercations, we are seeing some verbal altercations, and one of the things that is popping up in the month of May in terms of threatening language is not so much bus operator to patron, but we're seeing patron to patron threatening language as it involves mask usage. So that's something that we're starting to track right now, is the really patron to patron threatening language to one another when it comes to masks or wearing a mask. So that's something we're tracking now, and we're going to continue, and we'll update you on that. In terms of trespasses, May was a high month for trespasses for us. Now, I say that the type of trespasses that we're seeing are not large physical type of trespasses. They deal with loitering. So we had a lot of loitering at our transit centers in April and May. I can tell you we're already starting to see a decrease in that, but at the very beginning of April and May, as the Safer at Home orders were taken into place, we had a number of vagrancy, loitering issues of non-HART passengers at our transit facilities, and we worked with our partners in both the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and the police, but we have seen a little bit of a rise in those trespasses. Next slide. So with that, you know, we talked about safety and security, but I wanted to make sure the committee knows that, you know, this agency is working hard, diligently on every time we have an event, an operator is going through post-event training with a member of safety, operations, or training. We do that with every type of event. All events, whether it's a mere clip to anyone, is important to us, and we take those serious. We're continuing to work on our COVID-19 and hurricane emergency management coordination with our great partners in the county, with the city, with the Sunshine Line, with the school board, and we're happy that, you know, that we're meeting on a regular basis with them. Some things to let you know is, as we talked about in earlier committees about the safety management system and the PTAS and the new regulatory items that were coming up, members of HART staff actually received training from the FTA on the Transportation Safety Institute just on SMS. So this is part of our process as we're preparing for that deadline at the end of the year of getting staff prepared. I also want to give a kind of shout out to our HR team, to our maintenance team, to really our frontline employees as well. As part of our COVID communication, HART staff went out to the maintenance employees, and we had a series of toolbox talks. So, as you know, we put out email communication, social media blasts, signage, and postage, but we also wanted to make sure that we were talking to some of the maintenance employees at toolbox talks at the beginning of their shift. Really great feedback, went very, very well, and I'm happy to report that was something that we were able to accomplish in July. Again, we're continuing with our performance analysis meetings, making sure that data drives our decision making. Later this month, part of that SMS and PTAS is the new safety plan. So PTAS is that funky acronym for the new safety plan that the agency has to. There's going to be a workshop on the 19th and 20th. This is all part of HART being in front of this, being prepared for this rollout. On the security side, we're working with the Transportation Security Administration on emergency planning. We're doing a workshop with them on August 26th. That's also part of our Super Bowl planning. So we've already engaged with TSA in preparing for the Super Bowl in a number of different activities, and this workshop on August 26th is one of those dates. We're working with the FRA to do some interlock testing. That date, we just found out this weekend, has changed to October, but the interlock testing is a requirement that we do with FRA and CSX as it relates to the streetcar, and then we're moving forward with our human trafficking program. So, in short, the agency is working hard. Safety and security is a paramount item. We're continuing to, even with COVID, we're moving forward on these important items for our community. Next slide. And with that, Madam Chair, I would open up to any questions you may have, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Malloy. Great overview. Any questions at this time for the committee members?
Madam Chairman, this is Dave Mechanic. I have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mechanic. You're recognized.
Yes, thank you. As usual, Mr. Malloy, a very good presentation. Can you describe what the training is for the operator when two passengers are either verbally or physically involved in a conflict? I'd just like to know exactly what they're supposed to do. And I guess that would be different if they're driving versus not driving at the time of the incident.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for the question, sir. De-escalation is the training that we do. So when they're involved in those type of situations, and it's safe to do so, they are actively trained in de-escalation techniques. And we actually do best practices from the Transportation Safety Institute. We use their program, and we brought in Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and they created a specific program that all of our bus operators and frontline employees went to that talks about how to de-escalate those situations. So that's the training that we provide. It is conducted both as they're onboarded, refresher training in terms of our quarterly trainings that we do that all of our frontline employees go through, and then, are there specific events, we have that individual follow-up with the employee as well.
Mr. Malloy, what I was really asking, though, was what are the steps that the operators are told to take in these situations?
Perfect. Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir, for the clarification. So our operators are in direct communication with our control center. So, again, we are asking the operator not to become overly involved in any type of situation. They contact our control center. Our control center then reaches out to a supervisor that's going to respond to that scene to help assist that operator. We've had very good success with this with our supervisors who deal with these situations on a professional level. And if it does rise to a level that the police need to be called, then we're notifying our partners at Tampa PD or Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. So, again, just in summary, sir, the operator would call into our control center. Our control center would then immediately send a supervisor. The supervisor assists, and then if need be, law enforcement is involved.
what would you say the average response time is for the supervisor to arrive, and what does the operator do in the meantime?
So in terms of the response time would generally vary based on the type of event that you have. So, and we follow the same protocols really as law enforcement. So our control center, we had a training with Tampa PD's dispatch of kind of how to do these hierarchy in terms of response time. So if there's, for example, a physical type of event, there's going to be a very, very rapid response. You know, as things kind of move lower down that threat level, you know, they're going to respond accordingly to best practices that kind of police and fire do. So we have supervisors throughout the entire system. So they're in zones, so there's not just one supervisor. We have them throughout the entire system. We have our transit centers, and then as you recall, this board did allow us to increase the level of our security guards, so we have mobile security guards that act as an assistance there as well. So I can get back to you on kind of exact response times, but we do have a number of different staff out there, as well as managers, supervisors, security, and law enforcement that are there to assist our operators.
Okay, but I'm just asking, like, what does the operator do in the meantime? Does he stop the bus? Does he just continue the route? What exactly is happening in these situations?
So the operator is, you know, working with the control center is kind of given discretion. So, you know, if they may stop the bus at that time, you know, if the person is unruly, you know, and is not willing to abide by the ordinances that have been set forth by the county and the city, you know, but a way to think about it is like our fare policy. We follow, like, so when you're thinking of the mask, we also, you know, kind of follow a similar type of thing as our fare policy, is that we don't want operators becoming overly involved, but they will, if there's a situation that dictates, they will stop the bus while they get assistance from the supervisor.
Okay, thank you.
Colin, this is Ruthie Reyes-Burkhardt, Deputy Chief of Transportation. I would only add to that our operators are definitely trained to stop the bus. They open all the doors in the event that any other passengers or they feel that they also need to remove themselves from the vehicle if there is any imminent danger or any threat to them or other customers.
Yep. Thank you, Ruthie. Yep, correct.
All right. Thank you very much, Director Mechanic and Ms. Ruthie Reyes, for the additional comments and for taking the follow-up to provide the board with an overview of the process and how that happens. I think that's a very important question considering the rise in patron of patron incidences. Staff, are there any other comments or any questions from committee members for staff?
Chair Williams, Commissioner Overman has her hand raised as well.
All right. Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was trying to figure out whether I needed to interrupt or just kind of wait to be patient, so that worked out great. Thank you for your report, Colin. As the chair on the Commission of Human Trafficking that's also preparing for, believe it or not, Super Bowl, the Commission's been asked to act as a convener on the issue associated with human trafficking, which is oftentimes a concern at large events such as the Super Bowl. Could you update me on specifically what the human trafficking program is and what stage you are in terms of either implementation or development so that I could report back to the committee?
Yes, ma'am, and I'll be happy to provide the information in writing through our interim chief executive officer. But we're very excited about this. It is such a worthwhile program. The entire organization has kind of come behind and supported this. HART won a grant from the FTA for this human trafficking program. So we actually got grant funding that allows us to do a number of different things. Is that one, we'll be doing training with all of our operators in terms of the signs of human trafficking. and how they can then report that information to the proper entities within the Tampa Bay region. Prior to COVID, we have 35,000 to 40,000 people of, that our bus operators come across in each and every day. So having those eyes is just such a powerful thing. We are partnering. Some of the groups that we are working with is the Tampa Bay Human Trafficking Task Force. So we are actually working directly with them. We've had a number of meetings. They're helping us actually develop the curriculum, and they're going to teach the curriculum. So we're going to have firsthand people that day in and day out are working in this field that are going to be training our operators, and we're starting that off in September. In mid-September, we'll be doing that training, and we'll be going to be doing also promotion in terms of on our buses, and there's going to be a media campaign, and we will, our HR team has been taking the lead in training as well. So the Human Trafficking Task Force, Sayla Freedom, Redefining Refugee, there are so many great partners in this community that have all come together, and HART is really proud to be able to bring forward this grant that we received and to put forward this program. So I can get you the hard details, but we're really, really excited, and there's great. This is a situation where I'm just so proud of the community we have here in Hillsborough County, because so many people are working hard on this, and HART is now going to partner on that.
Thank you. Yes, we coordinate with the same task force. The training is free and available to any employer group that is interested in actually understanding and what it looks like and how to respond. In addition to that, the Commission is developing a robust communications plan. So the reason I'm asking is because I'm very interested in giving you the opportunity to coordinate with that effort, as well as an opportunity to really shine during the Super Bowl. It's a terrific program. We're working with several of the same folks that you're speaking with at the task force. And while the task force is more boots on the ground as far as investigation and exploration, the Commission is looking at a broader sustainable program and having signage on the buses and having announcements on the buses and having your drivers be aware of the need is an important part of that process. So I look forward to getting the materials that you have. And please feel free to keep me informed on your progress. I look forward to helping in any way I can. Thank you.
And ma'am, I'd be happy to provide a full presentation at the next committee meeting on this project, because we have a lot of great information, and our communications, human resources, and training teams have all been doing a really great job.
Terrific. Thank you very much for the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Overman. Danielle, are there any other questions or comments in the queue at this time for committee members for staff?
No, ma'am. Not that we see.
Okay. I'd like to make a comment, particularly about a tour that I took on August 6th. I had an opportunity to meet with the interim CEO, Ms. House Stewart, and spent some time with Mr. Malloy as well as Mr. Drainville. And we toured the maintenance building and just had lots of discussion with employees along the way in the break rooms and so forth. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank them for their leadership, as well as those employees there. They were certainly focused on being safe. They were focused on being clean and operating with the right materials. And I just appreciate that and want to recognize and applaud the work they're doing in light of COVID, but committed to serving the community. So thank you. Just want to make that a part of the record. All right. Thank you, Mr. Malloy, for your presentation. Next, we're going to move on to our agenda for committee action items. The first one is authorize the interim CEO to execute a public transportation grant agreement between Hillsborough Transit Authority and the Florida Department of Transportation to accept transit urban Florida funds to assist with operating costs of Route 20X, Pasco Loose Express, in the amount of $285,915. Cindy Stiglitz, interim Chief Financial Officer, and Christopher Cochran, Director of Service Development. You're recognized to present this agenda item, please.
Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman. This is Chris Cochran, for the record, Director of Service Development. Ms. Stiglitz will be available if there's any specific finance or grant questions that may need further clarification that I can't answer. Both of the following committee items, A and B, are related in the sense that these are both annual FDOT grants that we receive. They are transit corridor funding assistance that are provided for these routes. The first one is a limited express route that operates between the Target just north of County Line on north on Dale Mabry and runs into downtown. It's a while we are currently looking at the possibility of some of these routes being reduced for the January service changes. We do need to go forward with executing these agreements with DOT in case those changes aren't made to these. So if you all are wondering why we are doing this with service cuts, looking at the potential for service reductions, that is why it's very important that we have this in order. Just to be sure that we can fund them in case we are not making the reductions that may impact either one of these. So the first one, we're looking at the recommendation for you all to authorize us to execute this annual amount in the amount of $285,915. And this is a grant that requires no match.
Madam Chairman, this is Mechanic. I'll move approval of item 5A.
Thank you.
Just a second, but I have a question.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a first by Director Mechanic and a second by Director Sisler. Any questions and comments at this time, and I'll hand it over to Director.
Madam Chair, yes, we have Directors Schisler, Kemp, and Overman all with hands up.
Very good. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Director Schisler at this time.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a real quick question. Of the $286,000, how much of the total expense does that cover?
As far as I know, that covers most all of the route for this particular route. This one does not run very often. That's very different from the 275 LX that we'll discuss next.
Okay, so then just given that if the changes go through, what will we have to do with these funds? Give it back, or maybe be allocated someplace else? What kind of strings are attached to this going forward?
So we have requested for DOT to consider the ability for us to reallocate these funds. They will be meeting this week to discuss that further, and we should have an answer back this week. And we'd be happy to send out a report and update you all at the earliest opportunity, so that you all understand what's going on with that funding. Otherwise, if they don't, yes, and Cindy, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it would just go back to DOT.
Well, we should know before this comes before the board for final approval, correct?
I apologize, can you repeat that?
We should know the answer to that from FDOT and all concerned parties before the next board meeting, correct?
Yes, sir. Well, I'm hoping we will know Wednesday or Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. Well, I will definitely be a no vote on this. And I will tell you the number of reasons why, which I think are many. First of all, this route has been changed. This is not a route that we're operating at this time. The route has been changed. Used to, for years, run from Lutz to downtown. Lutz serving primarily Hillsborough County. It has suddenly turned into a route, and I don't see any ridership evidence of why this is needed or what it will do, especially during these times. Suddenly turned into a route that goes from Land O'Lakes to McDill. That is a different route, that we're not talking about the same route as before. That route is a route that is primarily serving Pasco. It's picking up people in Pasco twice by 2 buses in the morning at Land O'Lakes and bringing them to McDill. Why in the world should our resources that are so desperately short, that we're being told that we cannot have a bus to run in downtown because we don't have buses that work well enough, why in the world should we be turning them over to operate a route that serves Pasco County? This is clearly a Pasco County job to do in my mind, and they should have the benefit and the decision to make in terms of whether they're funding, and it's a priority enough for them to have their residents get to McDill, and if they have those ridership numbers to do that, because that's what this route is about. As well, we should note, again, I say that, we have just been told that we have this terrible issue with the lack of adequate buses, and that our bus fleet is in terrible service. This is an extraordinarily a route that really hurts in terms of the miles it does and the drain it puts and the wear and tear and the miles it uses on our buses. These are the kinds of routes that are low ridership that we should be moving from, even if it was in Hillsborough County, serving Hillsborough County residents. The grant that FDOT gives, it says, quote, assist in operating costs of the express service into Pasco County. So when you calculate out these costs, which we have listed as $285,000 that we would get from them, the question I'd like to know, Cindy, is the wear and tear on the buses, which is the huge part of this, as well as the cost of the drivers and everything else, that doesn't sound like it's covered in this 285. Have we done that calculation?
Yes, thanks for recognizing me. Cindy Stiglich, interim CFO for HART. This grant for the 20X is only being, and as well as the 275, we're only using that to defray the cost of operator salaries and the fringes. It does not take into consideration the fully allocated costs of operating each of those routes.
So it'll be us providing fuel, but also the wear and tear, which is very expensive on our buses. So, to me, this is FDOT dictated, but makes no sense for our transit agency to be taking this on. And I just think we have got to get away from doing this. We are the most underfunded transit system in the nation, not by a little bit, but by a long shot. And for us to take away from our services within Hillsborough County to subsidize these services for other counties on routes that make no sense even for the other counties, most likely. I just think it reminds me of, you get $1,000 discount on this timeshare, but then you have to pay $20,000 every week you rent it or something like that. In fact, I don't think it's fair of FDOT to even be approaching us with this proposal. So I'll be a no vote.
Commissioner Kemp, thank you for your comments. Commissioner Overman, you are recognized, please.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I've heard both comments, and I am largely a big supporter of supporting McDill. And if this route serves McDill, I have interest in it. But I do also very much understand Commissioner Kemp's comments, because if we have asked FDOT for these funds to run this route, rather than FDOT say, hi, we have this money to run the route, I am curious, as she indicated, why they're not going to Pasco's system and allow them to run it. And to hear that it only covers operator costs versus the entire cost to facilitate a route from Pasco to McDill seems concerning. While I appreciate us being aggressive about going to get money wherever we can get it, and I do appreciate that is a necessary and required effort at this point, I am concerned that if this express route only literally has a stop in Pasco and then a stop in McDill, and not, does it stop in downtown and pick up people to McDill?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Just to clarify, this goes from the Target at County Line Road in Lutz, which is about, a couple hundred yards past the county line, and it loops around it loops around that Target. It's right at the apex of Dale Mabry and 41, and then it comes down 41, goes down Florida, comes into downtown to MTC, serves through downtown, and then jumps on the expressway, gets off to Dale Mabry and served the Air Force Base.
So for the route itself, where is the bulk of the ridership? Is it from downtown to the base, or is it from the Lutz station through to McDill?
I apologize. I don't know that offhand, but I can certainly have that information for you.
I think
by
it's
the end of the
important for us to I think it's important to recognize, while I always appreciate FDOT's help, proper deployment of our operational dollars in order to serve our citizens is our job in this committee to discern.
Certainly.
So if there's a deadline for meeting this grant, this grant award, then, that we have to vote on this at this point, I would defer. But if we, if we have to meet the deadline in order to acquire the funds, I would go ahead and support the motion. But I do find it a little odd that we are going to go, oh, well, we want the money, but then we might want to do something else with it. I think we need to better clarity in how we negotiate with FDOT and better operations in how we deploy those funds. And this is concerning. I hate turning away resources, but I want to make sure we're using them in a most appropriate, efficient manner. And at the end of the day, our job is to help people get from one place to another. If the ridership from that Lutz Pasco Express stop is sufficient and does serve our military personnel to help alleviate the traffic that would otherwise end up on Dale Mabry and 275 to get to McDill, there's value there. I get that, and I want to see that. But I also recognize this needs to be in partnership with Pasco, and if FDOT is allocating these funds against HART's resources as a county, I think it's important for us to develop a relationship with Pasco on this route. And I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Mr. Cochran, is there a deadline? I believe Commissioner Overman asked a question about the deadline of when this is necessary, so we can have better clarity.
Chair Williams, Cindy Stiglitz, I can answer that question for you. These funds become available at the beginning of the state fiscal year, which was July 1. So we felt that, again, in order to get these allocated, as well as in our budget, we would bring this to the board in September. There is no, quote, deadline, but we cannot utilize the funding until it's executed. So in order to begin to build this grant, and we will be able to build this grant as soon as it's executed. We are coming to the end of both the 20X and the 275 that's been allocated this year. So as soon as these funds are available, we'd be able to use them. So if we, and I'll just say that because if we are talking about modifying the service effective January 1 or February 1, we would be able to utilize these grants in the interim if they're executed.
Thank you. Danielle, are there any other comments or questions at this time?
Yes, ma'am. There's Director Schisler, Director Mechanic, and Director Kemp.
Thank you. Director Schisler, you recognize.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that when I had asked my question previously, that Mr. Cochran indicated that this covered, unless I heard it wrong, covered the bulk of the expenses. But then we hear later on that it doesn't cover the fully allocated costs of the operating of the equipment. So I'm a little concerned with that answer. But having heard that, and then the other concern was the population that it's serving. And I think somebody said that the endpoint, the terminus, is just a few hundred yards north of the county line road. So I think that there's probably, or the county line, so I think it's probably an adequate number of Hillsborough County residents that went a little further north to catch that bus to go south. But again, it would be good information to have for final board approval. Whether we approve this motion or not today, it'll still come up again, I would believe, at the next board meeting. And in that time frame, there would be good information to know or be supplied to us as to A, what is the breakdown of the demographics, if you can, of the ridership, and B, I would like to know what the full cost breakdown is, you know, what this will be covering. Thank you.
Director Schisler, this is Cindy Stiglitz, if I may. Regarding the way in which these grants work, FDOT used to allow us to bill them at a fully allocated rate, which would have encompassed all of the other items that go into running the route. And this last year, they have since changed to having us only bill operator-related costs. So it did change. However, what they have allowed us to do, and Chris might want to talk more about the frequency with which the 275 operates, but they have allowed us to use the residual from the 20X grant to fund more of the 275LX. So we are being able to utilize the 20X grant more effectively, if you will, because they are allowing us to defray some of the costs on the 275.
Okay, well, to that line of discussion, 285, is that covering 85% of the fully loaded costs, or is it covering 90%? I would like to know, not today, you probably don't have that information at your fingertips, but prior to the board meeting, when we would be voting on this in its entirety, I would like to know what that breakdown is as a percentage. I'll stop there.
Yes, sir. I can ensure you all, if you choose to move this forward, I will have all of these questions answered and prepared for you to vote on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Mechanic, recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In light of this discussion, I'd like to modify my motion to ask that the item be referred to the board, a full board, but not with a recommendation of approval or denial. I think it warrants a fuller discussion than what we've had today. And I think a couple of things that we need to understand are what are the actual costs to HART. And I think this should be applicable. We approve hundreds of items where we receive a grant and the staff says to us, there's no local match required. Well, I had always understood that to be that we weren't paying anything, but in fact, it appears we are. So I'd like to know that in future grant recommendations, what the actual cost is to HART. And I'm not saying this route isn't worthwhile. I just think we need to know more about the circumstances and the cost. I would also just like to point out, and I think I've said this before, when we're facing cuts in service come the first of the year, we can't be making decisions, isolated decisions in a vacuum. If we approve the acceptance of this grant, I assume that means we're obligated for the remainder of the fiscal year, and that, in fact, becomes a commitment that may come at the expense of other routes that maybe, in our view, are more worthwhile. So I hate to be voting on projects on an individual basis like this. So with that, I would like to modify my motion to refer it to the board for a full staff report and consideration without a recommendation of approval.
I'll second that.
All right, Danielle, would you mind reading the modification? We have from Director Mechanic and a second from Commissioner Kemp, please.
I apologize, Madam Chair. Could we?
Do you want me to restate it, this Mechanic?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I move that the item be referred to the board for full consideration and a full staff report without a recommendation of approval or disapproval.
Thank you. Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Kemp. Are there any comments or questions? I believe, Commissioner Kemp, you were on the list next to comment. Thank you. You're recognized.
Thank you. I'm glad for the broader discussion. I think that, and for the points that were made about what the board needs to do to make a good decision in regards to this. And I feel like there is just too little information presented. What we should have presented with this, and a lot of it's been said, but let's see some ridership. I think right now it's very unclear, several issues with regards to this. Number one, can you tell me, can staff tell me, will it continue to leave from the same place at the border of Lutz and Hillsborough County that it has left from in the past? Or will that change?
No, the route would remain the same. The grant is tied to the alignment of the route as is. So when we apply for the grant, the alignment is, the scope of the grant is tied to the alignment.
So you're saying that, but right now, there is not a bus that goes to McDill
You're
from
correct.
here.
You're correct. The 20LX is not operating currently because of the COVID situation.
Right. But did it ever go to McDill?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh?
Yes.
It did. You're saying that 20LX didn't go from just the border to downtown, but it went from the border of the county to downtown and then to McDill in the past.
Correct.
Okay.
Two southbound trips and two northbound trips, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. And
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What I think we need, which I know that the 20LX has always had extraordinarily low ridership numbers and extraordinarily high costs. And we've had that presented as part of an overall look at all the routes. But it seems when we're having this discussion, we should be seeing those ridership numbers relative to the other routes and the cost numbers relative to the other routes. I would still maintain no matter what. This is not a benefit that we get, but a cost that we're taking on. And as Director Mechanic pointed out, it's a cost that we take on at the expense of other routes that could be serve many more people and, could be much more used. I think to present this in a vacuum without showing us the ridership, where the ridership comes from and where it leaves and, how that works and the cost is, for us, it doesn't, we can't make a good decision about this. So, as has been said, I think we need that information, and I would ask that information's always included whenever something like this is discussed. We should do it in the context of that information.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. I understand that, and all of that information, that specific information will be put in there with this specific presentation, and all of that cost ridership comparison information is always every single month in the back of your board packet as well, organized in comparison to all of the other routes as well. But I will be sure that it is specifically attached to these two action items for the board meeting next month.
And I'm just thinking, I know that you've been asking FDOT for information with regards to this for quite a long time, because I've talked and asked you about it. And it would seem to me, not here, but at the board meeting, that if we still don't have this answer, it might be wise for the board at that point to make a request or support a request to FDOT to, allow for this money to be put to grants that are better served and do more for serving the population of Hillsborough County. If we're going to provide what is a significant match and significant cost and a significant shift of our resources. So I'm not going to do that right now, but I'm just want the other members, directors on here to be maybe thinking about that and considering that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. Danielle, are there any other comments or questions? Anyone in the queue for questions for staff at this point?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Stigledge has her hand raised, and so does Director Overman. And I also wanted to give you a time check. It is 10 o'clock. It is when the Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee was scheduled to start.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go ahead and hear from Ms. Stigledge as well as Ms. Overman. And I'll look at the agenda at this point to see if there's anything we can do to move this on faster, or if we defer them. Thank you. I'll hand it off to you at this time, Ms. Stigledge. Cindy Stigledge, you were going to respond?
Yes, I'm sorry. Actually, my hand was raised from before. I apologize.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Yes, I thank you. And this is where planning and operation becomes so wonderfully important. The questions I was asking about ridership is critical. We have other routes or van service available for military personnel to get to McDill, and it's funded with different dollars, different resources. So when we're looking at ridership, Mr. Cochran, when you come back to us with ridership, I would like to get, if at all possible, a read on, what number of folks get off at McGill, as opposed to maybe getting off at downtown or at other locations, wherever other stops are. Because that's going to tell us a lot about whether or not this service could be operated in a different manner. And given that we're not even running this service right now, and there's a possibility of changing it in January, it would seem as though it would be appropriate to really look at other alternatives. So I'll support the motion as a refer to the board without a recommendation at this point. But I do ask that you bring back to the main board the answers to those questions so that we can deploy resources that are funded by FDOT responsibly and efficiently. And I'll stop there.
Understood.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Danielle, will you take account of the vote at this point, please?
Yes, ma'am. On the amended motion, please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Williams?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle, in light of time, I just want to ask Mr. Cochran, is the 275 conversation very similar to the one we previously had, or is this something different?
It is very similar, yes, ma'am. And my guess is there would be a lot of the same questions.
Okay. In light of that recommendation, Ms. Mandel, is there anything I need to do to defer this to our full board or ask for recommendation at this point?
Yes, you would need to have an action under which the same or similar motion is made to refer this to the entire board for additional information. And
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Danielle, will you take a vote, please? Thank you, Ms. Mandel.
Yes, please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Williams?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm on a committee, committee number, I guess this is C, approval of the 1-year extension to the operator's agreement for the Pico Line streetcar system.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Danielle, will you recap and take a vote, please?
The motion was made by Director Kemp, seconded by Director Overman. Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Williams?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Committee action D, Mr. Malloy, it is to authorize the interim chief executive officer to award a contract for a transit unit digital security camera and audio system to IVS Incorporated, doing business as Angel Tracks for a total not to exceed amount of $1,990,601.04.
Correct, ma'am. Thank you. The purpose of this item is it's to approve the contract that would remove our current equipment and provide a new digital security camera as well as audio system for our 85 paratransit vehicles, up to 184 of our fixed route vehicles, and our 10 streetcars.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that, and I have a question.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by Commissioner Overman. And you, Commissioner Overman, you are recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Does this security and digital program coordinate with other digital upgrades that we've had, or is it separate from our camera digital system on the Megan buses?
This is a replacement for the system that we currently have. This would be HD with audio. It replaces the current system we have, and we'd be moving with the Angel Track system.
And is that going to be the system we're going to be using network-wide?
On the vehicle fleet side, yes. When it comes to facility, we use a Cisco-based for our facility cameras, but for our fleet, buses, streetcars, yes, that'll be the direction we are going, ma'am, correct.
Okay, and is that, when you say facility, that's largely our main yard. Is it also our transit stations, our main transfer transit stations, or is that a separate system?
No, you're 100% correct, ma'am. It would be Marion Transit Center, University Area Transit Center, Net Park, our Ybor location. That's what I referenced in terms of facility cameras.
Okay. All right. So we're going to be looking at two different security systems, one on the buses and one in the transit station.
Yes,
Correct?
ma'am. Correct.
Is there a reason why we didn't use one?
Just they specialize their specialized equipment for the transit vehicles and the type of usage and the storage capacity and the type of use that is done that differs than what you really best practice on the facility side.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Overman. Danielle, are there anyone else in the queue at this time?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Will you please take a vote?
Yes, please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Williams?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. The next action is regarding the downtown, or in light of the input that we received at the beginning of the meeting, just like to ask a couple of questions. And Julia, if you could give me some guidance. But Mr. Cochran, how long is this presentation?
I can be done in just under 5 minutes.
Okay, can you make it shorter than that?
2 minutes. How's that sound? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, thank you. If we have other questions, then we'll deal with those, but please proceed. Thank you.
Okay. We can go straight to questions and comments and make it super quick. Okay. All righty. Go ahead. Next slide, please. Go ahead to the next slide. Just a very quick background. You know, this has been in operation since 2016. This program, the Downtowner, as most of you should be aware at this point in time, or likely aware, it's been operating down there for several years. They've done, at this point, over 600,000 rides. At this point in time, ridership is down about 62%, and that'll go into part of the ask today. Next slide, please. Previously, we've had a couple MOU agreements in place already. In August of 2019, the board approved an MOU that was not to exceed the $568,000 through March. At that point in time, we got to that point and began looking into the development of an RFP to go out to where HART would essentially put out a procurement for developing and putting out a service that would be operated through HART and taking advantage of DOT dollars that were being offered within this fiscal year and next as well. Next slide, please. At this point in time, the solicitation has been completed. The evaluation is almost complete. I believe there's one last thing to be done in the evaluation of the RFP. Because of the complexity of the nature of the technology and the respondents, the number of respondents that we had, trying to answer some of the questions related to the technology and the complexity of what we're trying to do. In this, we extended the RFP for 2 weeks, which put us on a new timeline due to the fact that September, we were not able to get our RFP evaluation results into this committee here for August, and being that we have no committees next month with the budget meetings, the new timeline for the contract of this procurement is as follows there through October being. We're proposing to bring it to strategic planning for a November board selection and launching it in December. And because the reduction of downtown service has been so significant, the operational costs have not spent nearly the amount of money that they would have normally, which left them with enough money to operate the service without any additional cost to HART during this time while we continue to get this into operation through the advancement of the board approval and the service launch that we would expect in December. And so our action item request is really simply to extend the existing MOU through a period no later than December 31st, again, at no cost to HART. It would exist with the match coming from the downtown CRA, the existing funding that they had already put in.
So moved.
Second.
I do have some.
Thank you. We have a first from Commissioner Kemp and second from Commissioner Overman. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just want to simply push this through till December. I'll reiterate that I think an on-demand service downtown is really a role for the private sector, as it's done in every city across America, and not something that should be subsidized, even though we're not subsidizing it now. And I will continue to be opposed to us subsidizing any kind of on-demand specialized service in a downtown. That makes no sense to me, either as an original project or a continued project. But I will just spend out this, agree to spend out this funding that is absolutely of no cost or burden to HART at this time, as it originally was intended. And I just we'll just move this along and have that discussion another time. Thank you.
Director Overman has her hand raised as well.
Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. And I am very cognizant of the fact that we've had lower ridership, but there is a real possibility that if we go back to school and we don't have a major, health mess as a consequence of kids going back to school, there may be more people returning to downtown. So in the language of this particular agreement, in the event that there are estimates that this low level, isn't sustained, should it pick up, right now the funding is coming from two other sources, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner.
Through December?
Correct. It is, and however, we have made it clear that we will not be putting in any additional funding. They will need to stretch their budget accordingly.
Okay, great. That was my only concern, and so I maintain my second and vote.
Thank you. Are there any other comments and questions at this time?
No, ma'am, not that we see.
Okay, Danielle, will you take a vote by name and announce the vote result, please?
Absolutely. Please say yes or no after your name is called. Chair Williams?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the Operations and Safety Committee. This concludes the regular business for today. Is there any old business? New business? Hearing on, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.